Mexico's large landmass is marked by a wide variety of geological features and climates, which allows Mexico to produce more than 350 distinct varieties of farm products. Mexico's agricultural industry accounts for 4.1% of its GDP and more than 18% of the country's employment. The exporting of these products nets Mexico over $9 billion annually. The country has an important forestry production of resins, oils, waxes, and gums. In the mining industry, Mexico has a relatively large output of silver and other precious metals. Mexico is also the home of a large petroleum market that generates substantial revenue. Corn and beans are staple crops that will account for about 60% of the cultivated land in Mexico. Roughly 30% of Mexico's land is designated for grazing. Apart from agricultural use, land is cleared for human colonization and business development. Popular crops grown in Mexico include corn, beans, sorghum, wheat, coffee, sugarcane, cotton, and fresh fruits and vegetables. Agriculture is an integral part of the Mexican economy because it employs many of the unskilled workforce who support their families through subsistence and domestic farming. It also fosters ties with the U.S., who is Mexico's biggest consumer of agricultural goods, purchasing over 70% annually. However, due to expensive building and irrigation, difficulty to obtain financing, outdated technology, low profits, and little protection from the competing countries' discriminating tariffs, only 15% of Mexico's land is actually used to grow crops, even though half of Mexico is considered agricultural land. If Mexico can leverage its advantages and boost its agricultural exports, it could have a number of benefits for the country, including increased employment opportunities in rural areas, increased incomes, and reduced reliance on foreign capital. Mexico is located on the continent of North America. It is bordered by the Caribbean Sea and the Gulf of Mexico in the east, Belize and Guatemala in the south, the North Pacific Ocean to the west, and the United States to the north. Mexico is slightly less than 3 times the size of Texas. There is 1,943,946 square kilometers of land with 20,430 square kilometers of water, to combine to a total area of 1,964,375 square kilometers. This earns Mexico 14th in the ranking of largest countries. The climate in Mexico is highly varied, from tropical jungles to beaches to vast desert land. It is home to North America's largest desert and jungle, the Chihuahuan Desert, and the tropical Landicon jungle, which is highly threatened to agriculture and urbanization, and more than half of it has already been cleared or burned. It also has miles of coastline, providing beaches such as the Tulum Beach. Mexico's diversity of climate is due to the fact that many biomes are within its borders. The 3 main biomes are desert, tropical dry forest, and tropical rainforest. Because of Mexico's many biomes and location relative to the equator, there are many species and very rich biodiversity. Mexico has dramatic differences in terrain. Throughout Mexico, high, rugged mountains, low coastal plains, high plateaus, and deserts can be seen across the landscape. Elevation is also greatly varied. The highest point is Volcán Pico de Orizaba at 5,675 meters above sea level. The lowest point is Laguna Salad at negative 10 meters below sea level to make the average elevation 1,111 meters above sea level. The population of Mexico is currently around 121,736,809, making it the 11th most populous country in the world. With a population of about 21 million people, Mexico City is currently considered to be the 6th most populated city in the world. In Mexico, 62% of the population considers themselves to be mestizo, a mixture of Spanish and Amerindian. Amerindian is an ethnic group made up of ancestors of the indigenous people of the Americas. Although most of the citizens of Mexico are a mixture of Spanish and indigenous peoples, the country is nearly full of Spanish speakers, making up 92.7% of the population. In addition, the Mexican culture is deeply rooted in the Catholic faith. Members of the Catholic Church make up 82.7% of the population. On average, a mother's mean age at birth is 21.3 years, and the country's total fertility rate is 2.27. Overall, the population of Mexico is relatively young, with a median age of 27.6 years old. The church hosts a large population of children and young people, depicting a large upcoming working class that will support the elderly. With a fast-growing population in the 1970s, Mexican policymakers got together to devise a plan. It included adding an amendment to the Mexican Constitution that would allow equality for men and women to allow them to plan their families. The goals of this new law also included promoting economic development, slowing the growing population, better spatial distribution of the population, and promoting education and information. With this law, Mexico became the second country to allow its citizens to decide how many children they would have and how far to space them apart. The graph shows what the population would have been with the green line and what the new policy did to slow down the population growth with the yellow line. Currently, the population growth is 1.18%. Mexico is full of biodiversity and is a center of endemic species. It is estimated that more than 10% of all the world's species live in Mexico, and around 65,000 species have been recorded, while 200,000 are believed to exist unresearched. Threats to Mexico's biodiversity, like natural habitat loss and deforestation, are causing species to become threatened or endangered. Overexploitation for timber and firewood have been major causes of forest loss. The rate of forest loss is estimated anywhere between 300,000 and 400,000 hectares per year. Deforestation has contributed to serious levels of soil erosion nationwide. Urban sprawl is a major problem within big urban centers such as Mexico City. Additionally, overpopulated city infrastructure and subsidence has caused sewage system damage. The scarcity of hazardous waste facilities leaves raw sewage, chemical pollution, and industrial effluents polluting water and rivers. Mexico City has some of the world's highest rates of water consumption and chronic water shortages, forcing about 30% of the city's drinking water to be brought from miles away. The uneven distribution of natural sources of rainfall and depletion of aquifers has caused the water table to lower and subsidence to occur. Subsidence is the natural sinking of areas of ground that threatens the stability of older buildings and the city's infrastructure. Air pollution is also a major environmental issue in Mexico. In urban cities and suburbs, 20 million people are exposed daily to multiple toxic particles like ozone, sulfur dioxide, ammonium dioxide, and other nitrogen oxides suspended in the air. Geography Review states that most of the pollution comes from the burning of fossil fuels by almost 20 million residents, 3.5 million vehicles, and 35,000 industries and services. Mexico's environmental deterioration, overuse of water for irrigation, and chaotic urbanization processes with struggles to access clean water have left many in search of new places to live. Mexico is a free market economy mixed with industry and agriculture and is largely under the influence of the private sector. Since Mexico was introduced to the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, the country has become more positioned towards a global manufacturing economy. Mexico has free trade agreements with over 50 countries. A majority of their workforce is employed in the service sector, 62.9%, then industry, 23.4%, and agriculture, 13.7%. Mining, manufacturing, and petroleum are vital to their economic industries. Mexico City accounts for much of the economic activity of the country because it has a large-scale workforce, consumer market, and low distribution costs. Most of the Mexican population has access to basic resources, although there is little economic opportunity in the southern rural populations. Mexico has trouble with the unequal wealth distribution, poverty, and the below-standard labor laws. Public investment causes these regions to grow even more unequal. The economic disparities creating such conditions for the poor have sparked a response in Mexican authorities. They have been working on implementing a more strict monetary and fiscal policy to promote macroeconomic stability. Mexico is the second largest export market for the U.S. and the third largest source of imports. Mexico brings in about $398.3 billion from exports, while its imports bring in about $400.4 billion, with its big partners being the U.S., Japan, and China. Mexico has very high debt. The country's GDP per capita has an estimated $17,900. Pemex is one of the largest oil companies of non-OPEC oil and resides in Mexico, bringing in a sizable income for the country. Mexico's main imports include agricultural machinery, auto parts, steel mill products, and metalworking machines. The country's main exports include their farm crops, beef, poultry, dairy, tobacco, textiles, petroleum, clothing, vehicles, iron and steel, and motor vehicles. Tourism is also a large source of income.